Well, we could just go over a lot of the bonus stuff in the actual trilogy menu while they dish out more. You have anything else to say about Prime 3 or the trilogy?
Yeah, in terms of the trilogy, I do also have to say that it is also my first exposure to Prime 1 and Prime 2, and while 2, I would say that of 2, it's the weakest one, but I would say none of these games are bad by any stretch of the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
They are well-designed games. Retro knew exactly what they were doing in order to make Samus work in this new environment of the ancient, what you would call it, undiscovered, uncharted world of 3D.
Yep.
And they managed to find a way to make it work super well for Metroid. And
yep.
I have a huge soft spot for this collection, despite a lot of these games being in weird places in terms of what my overall Metroid ranking would be. The thing about Metroid, I also have to say, is that with the exception of maybe Other M, at least of the games I've played so far,
yeah,
you can't really say Metroid has a really bad track record. Most of the games that have come out
anything
are
after
generally
Super Metroid.
good.
Yep.
Yeah, everything Super Metroid onward generally. There's a couple of exceptions here and there depending on who you ask, but the quality and craftsmanship of their games are always high.
Mm-hmm.
You can never go wrong with almost any of their entries. Emphasis on almost.
Mm-hmm.
So which one do I want to go to?
Go to any of these.
We can go through all of them, I guess. So let's see. Prime 1.
We basically looked through a lot of the gallery stuff, which a lot of these image galleries were part of the initial games as well.
Yep.
Like I said, for the GameCube versions, Prime 1, you unlock half for getting 50% of the items. You unlock the other half for getting 100% of the items.
This is really cool, though. I do love what behind-the-scenes stuff like this.
I mean, of course, I love going over this stuff.
Yeah.
I think you could go press left or right to basically
I think I saw
arrows to go through more images as well.
So this is the World Gallery.
I guess you might have to hit the arrow.
Yes, the arrow.
Okay, yep, alright.
It's on the D-pad, so...
But yep, it's always nice to get a look at some of the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah. Because it is kind of fascinating to see what goes into making games, because... You know, a lot of us can whine and complain about certain things about modern games and all that, but making games is hard.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I speak as someone who is a computer programmer, not a computer science major. It's hard as hell, man.
Yeah, that's why I was upset over game prices rising, but you know, the more I think about it, games are super expensive to develop. Like, the average AAA game is costing like $150 million to develop. Some of it might be marketing, but still, it's a lot of time, it's years of work with usually hundreds of people working on it.
Yeah.
Doing a whole bunch of different respects. You got programming, you got marketing, you got AI, you've got like art designers.
Yeah, the art designers, music.
Mm-hmm. Actual like story designers and like storyboarders and planners, like how the flow of a game works.
The quality assurance team.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that goes into it.
Not to mention like the character modeling and all that. And again, more art design if you're going with a unique art style.
Yeah.
And get familiar with different engines, with the people behind those, like Jesus.
Yeah.
Amazing how big the industry has become. Like it's definitely our generation's version of like what Hollywood movies were becoming like the early 1900s.
Yeah. Maybe some of us could say we're debatably spoiled because of how modern games have come in a lot of ways. And in some respects, maybe we are.
Mm-hmm. But
it's also a time and a place that this sort of thing would normally be like demonized back in the day, but now it's like it got to a point in a generation where none of us are really ashamed of it. Like, this is a part of our life, and I'm sure shit ain't gonna drop anytime soon.
Comic books are starting to become part of the mainstream now. And that was like seems like the nerdiest thing.
Yeah, look at the MCU.
Yeah, MCU has made comic book knowledge somewhat popular.
Yeah, depending on how far you want to go.
I know some people that still, when you talk about comic book stuff, you're like, oh, come on, what are you, children? It's like, this is what everybody's into now.
Yeah, or
it's
like
the cool now.
Or animation. It's like a lot of people, like me back in the day as well, was kind of like that. And then I was sitting here looking at like anime and stuff. I'm sitting here thinking like, what the fuck am I doing? I should also
Anime's starting to grow too.
Yeah, it's like as me as someone who's like back in the day when I watched anime, and then I started realizing like, wait, why couldn't I just also watch the Western cartoons as well back in the day?
Yeah.
I feel kind of like an idiot.
I know the latest Dragon Ball movie, which I haven't seen yet, unfortunately, was apparently like one of the biggest like theater showings this year. Like,
Yeah.
I think it dominated the box office in 2 weekends it was there.
I mean,
when I dominated, but it was number one in the box office. I know.
Yeah, I did walk in the second time, but it was also empty. But that's the thing about those kind of movies is that people always, like, when it shows up, the fans will eat it up.
Mhm.
That's the kind of thing that they like and they want.
Oh yeah, did you guys see that One Piece Red film, by the way?
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed it.
I heard it was good, and apparently, I thought, oh, maybe you're the one that said apparently, like, they, like, revealed something that was actually going to come up later in the main series.
I think that was it, yeah.
It was probably
was
in the
me talking
manga, but
about-
they decided to debut it a little early.
Yeah.
They had Dragon Ball tried to do that in one of their movies, so they debuted Super Saiyan, quote unquote, but it was like Kaioken but gold. It was like, wow.
I mean, we can poke fun at a lot of Dragon Ball. I mean, everyone jokingly calls it as the soap operas for men, basically.
Here's a storyboarding.
Ooh. Yep.
But yeah, how much of Dragon Ball have you watched? Did you watch original Dragon Ball?
I've read the original Dragon Ball manga.
Okay, yeah.
So that's how I know about that. And as for Dragon Ball Z, the thing is, I probably did watch a lot of the manga, but the funniest thing is most of my absorption of the Dragon Ball Z is generally through the games. Specifically the Legacy of Goku series on Game Boy Advance, if you've heard about those games.
Poor Legacy of Goku 1.
Oh, yeah. Legacy of Goku 1 aged like milk.
That's known as one of the worst Game Boy Advance games.
Oh, yeah.
2 was so much better.
When you look at the jump from 1 to 2, it's just, wow.
2 is so much better.
2 is so good.
And 3 is basically just slight improvement.
Yep, slight improvement over 2.
I haven't played Boost Fury, but I definitely should go back and try to someday.
Yeah.
I've also been getting Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
I have that on my wish list. I maybe want to get that on the sale at some point, like I said. Like, there's also the new One Piece Odyssey game that I'm cautiously
that's going up
optimistic
too,
about.
yeah. A big RPG, yeah.
I have played a One Piece game back in the day known as Unlimited Adventure on the Wii, and I honestly liked it. And I have another on one of my other 3DSs that I'm currently running through. It has a bunch of games on it downloaded, and two of them are One Piece Unlimited Cruise 1 and 2, which built on a lot of the foundations that were already built on Unlimited Adventure. And I enjoy it for what it is. I think it's definitely better in some regards, but
yeah. And then again, I know most of the anime games that were really only the good ones for the most part were fighting games.
yeah, fighting games were usually like the
So
dominant.
recently, RPGs have been starting to become something.
Yeah, because I know in my wish list there is Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, One Piece Odyssey, also the Fairy Tail one.
Yeah, I keep forgetting the DS actually had some good ones. I thought there was like a really good Bleach one on DS.
Oh, sure. Maybe I'll ask one of my friends about that, because...
I know Naruto has like fighting games out the ass.
Yeah,
Then again, that's more
I forget what it is.
That's more what that
Ninja,
is.
Shippuden or something? I don't remember exactly what it's called.
Shippuden. They have a whole trilogy, I think.
I forget what it's called, but this looks pretty cool, though.
The altar, yep. The artifacts.
Fucking artifacts, though.
Oh, yeah, something else to mention about Prime 3. Don't you love you didn't have to get all of the grand collectible of the game on, like, the frickin' first two?
Yeah. That is another thing about Prime 3 that I also like, is that the MacGuffins that you need, they make sure to actually just make it so that you don't have to grab every fucking thing.
Yup. You only grab as much as you need to, which you only need half the energy cells, not all 9 of them.
Yeah. It's more tedious than anything else when I played it. Wasn't even hard.
Honestly, the big grand collectible hunting was at its worst in the first game.
I'd
Because,
say in the second game for me personally.
well, yeah.
Because here's the thing, it's like,
You did need the light suit for it, and you had to go to every single region again to get the light. Yeah, okay, yeah. Where if you did it the right way in Prime 1, you wouldn't need to backtrack much.
yeah,
If you did it right.
Yeah, like with Prime 2, you had to backtrack a lot. You had the light suit, thankfully, but still, it's just the amount of things you have to do is just brutal.
Yeah, Prime 1's shaped a lot better because usually when you have to backtrack, it's actually where you had to go somewhere, and usually if there was a power you missed, a new power you have while you're backtracking can get you something you missed before.
Yeah.
And they were good with that, like with the artifacts. They were usually pretty good about that. The only one you really had to go out of your way to backtrack to was Andromeda Drifts, for the 2 or 3 there. All the others you could pretty much get like as you ran into them, or if you thought about going that way.
Go. It's like these games. The one thing about these games is like it's frustrating is that I love these games as well. Don't get me wrong. It's just that these are meaty games.
Yeah, they're the meatiest of the Metroid games, pretty much. Like a lot of the other Metroid games, you can speed run in like under 2 hours if you know what you're doing. Hell, if you really know what you're doing, you might be able to do it in under an hour for a lot of them.
Yeah.
But the Prime games, You'll have a hard time doing it under 2.
This is not a game that you speedrun. This is a game that you take in strides.
Uh-huh. The 2D Metroid games, you can definitely speedrun, though. Then again, the way they're structured, they let you go for shortcuts and stuff. And I will admit, as much as I wasn't the biggest fan of Samus Returns, I did like the thing they carried over to Dread, where you didn't have to backtrack a heck of a lot. There was only like a few power-ups in every area you had to backtrack for, but like, a lot of them you could get your main trip through the area. Samus Returns did not do as well as Dread did. Like, Dread, when you use the teleporters, you basically backtrack through an area again, but you'd be able to pick power-ups all the way. Like, if you knew what you were doing and you didn't really backtrack at all, you'd easily get like 80% of everything.
Yeah, it's nice.
Where the Prime games, you really have to go more out of your way to dig into everything.
Yeah, and that's kind of the big thing about the Prime games.
They're definitely different from the 2D ones, but it depends on your preference. It's a great translation, but it's not exactly the way you'd expect.
But
it's not quite 2D to 3D in that respect.
I mean, I've had this written down, I think, in one of your videos, but I think this is a good place for me to say, is that when you try to make something from 2D to 3D, the principles that would generally work in 2D don't immediately translate into 3D. If you want a good example of what happens when you translate literally something that's just from 2D into 3D without really compensating for the 3D, X7. Mega Man X7 is the textbook example of what happens when you focus on just transferring everything from 2D to 3D without really taking into account what it means to be in a 3D environment.
That was one of the more infamous later examples. There were plenty of them that had problems on the Nintendo 64 PS1 era.
Oh, yeah.
Like frickin' Castlevania.
Castlevania had that problem. Oh, yeah.
God. But the second game they had was actually all right. They did a lot better.
Yeah.
But the first game, jeez, it's a clunky mess.
Yep, that's a little bit of a disaster.
Well, it does make me worry if some indie franchises do try to upgrade going to 3D. I wonder how well they can handle it.
One of the ones I've heard of interesting things about is Spark the Electric Jester.
I was gonna say something about that. Like Sonic Frontiers is like, you know, when you look at things that are like what a good Sonic 3D game could feel like, Spark the Jester is one of them.
That's what I heard about, especially the third game.
I mean, the visuals definitely make it feel like an indie game that looks cheap, but the mechanics they have for how it looks, I looked at how it moved. Holy shit!
Like, they may not know how to, like, maybe telling great stories isn't their strong suit, but when it comes to making strong games, they know what they're fucking doing.
The gameplay is definitely strong. Like, holy shit.
Like, I've seen bits and pieces of it, and it looks...
I just saw one little clip. Yeah, I just saw a video on YouTube. It's like, this is what 3D Sonic should play like. I watched, I was just like, holy shit!
If they could get those guys to work on the 3D Sonic games, yo,
just maybe.
Imagine.
Just maybe. The other galleries definitely are not as big as the others. Look at all the design you're going for just for creating Samus here.
I mean, and if you want to make something that looks good and memorable, then you're gonna have to put in the time.
Like, even thought of like the internal like structure. Like sometimes you have to go a little overboard with the logistics of everything because you want it to make sense to make it feel a little more real.
It's funny because I was actually just looking at the recent art book because I bought the special collection for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Ooh. The amount of detail that they go into for some of the characters is quite amazing.
Yeah. Concept art is literally can go just being simple. It's like coming up with things just for fun to try to turn it into something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And then trying to make it something like actually possible and reasonable. That's where some of the greatest of game designers in the 80s are as legendary as they are. They had an idea, they managed to elaborate on it, and that's where we got things like Shigeru Miyamoto and his numerous Nintendo franchises.
Or what the?
Probably alternate soup designs.
Yeah, I'm about to say, what's his name?
There's Hideo Kojima with the Metal Gear games.
Or
Shinji Mikami with Resident Evil.
Shinji Mikami,
that's another big one.
Keiji Inafune went back when he did Mega Man 2. Those were passion projects that were made in a year, and they spent time in the office sleeping in there while they were working on the game because that's just such a big passion project for them.
Where now, unfortunately, when we hear about crunch, unfortunately, it's more people feel like they're dragged into it, feel like they have to be forced to do it instead of really wanting to do it.
Yeah.
There are some that do, but we hear
it just feels
more.
like it feels more like there's people above it that just take advantage of that sort of passion, to say the least.
They're like,
Just
oh,
kind
you
of a
don't want to work
tragedy.
overtime like everybody else? Well, it sucks to be you. You might not be able to keep working here. It's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, if game development goes slow and you're trying to meet a deadline, that's the thing. Debugging games is ridiculous work.
Yeah, it's kind of brutal.
Now, another thing is that playtesters. You have people that like literally run into a wall for 10 hours in a day and run into any issues that happen, anything that happened differently when they did thing this way or that way. They need to document that shit. That can be fucking really boring, tiring work. But it can be necessary to make sure the game's running the way it should be.
We say that, but sometimes the best things come from like bugs and glitches.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we talked about
Yep, sometimes some undetected bugs can be
turned into something spectacular. I mean, look at Devil May Cry. It was a glitch that was the juggling mechanic that you saw in those games was a glitch, and they decided to. Someone decided that they would be crazy enough to make a game using that mechanic, and that's what ended up birthing Devil May Cry as a series and putting. God damn it.
Was that Shinji Mikami as well?
That's not Shinji Mikami. That's Hideki Kamiya. There we go.
Oh, Hideki Kamiya, yeah. Hideki Kamiya also helped with Resident Evil, if I remember. And then he split off. I wanted to say after Resident Evil 2.
Clover Studios. First they developed in the Clover Studios, and then after, which was a subsidiary of Capcom, and then after circumstances.
Yeah, I remember reading up on when I was looking at Resident Evil that apparently Hideki Kamiya did help with the first Resident Evil game at the very least.
That seems about right.
But
those two were pretty close.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I haven't even given my opinion on Prime Trilogy yet.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
Yeah, I do love this artwork. Oh, the end. The Dark Samus. And of course, the last image of the Prime 1 gallery is the storyboard for their extra 100% ending.
Yep.
And the Samus' face, which you only see for one thing.
Guess it must have been easy for that one.
And now it's time for Prime 2, which I'll mention this before I go over my thoughts. For the Prime 2 items, you got the first quarter of everything for getting 40% of the items. You got the second quarter for 60%, third quarter for 80%.
100%.
Oh no, scans, sorry. I was saying item collection, I meant scans.
Okay.
Excuse me, yeah.
So all of this is for scan. Comes with scans attached to it.
In that regard, you were trying to get information on a lot of things in the game. I guess you care enough to be able to want to look at this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I can imagine the scans being the things that you actually ended up scanning for.
So forgive me what I said about item collection. That's only for the endings. It's scan log. 50% for half it in Prime 1, and then 100% scan log for the second half. Which it sucks for Prime 1 because some enemies you can only see once, and sometimes they're bullshit spots, like the Ice Shriek Bat.
Yeah, I remember hearing stories
They're
about
one of the worst ones. And, yeah, Prime 2, it's 40% scan log for the first quarter, 60% for the second, 80% for the third, and all 100% for the last quarter of it. Where Prime 3, it's more just the scans you get give you coins, so you can basically buy the artwork to see.
Yeah. A little annoying, but that's just the mechanic that Prime 3 brought in. And, you know, for what it's worth, it does give motivation to want to actually go through the game.
Mm-hmm. Hope.
There's something about that.
Hope for change. Kill the Galactic Federation. Oh my god, this game did come out a year before freaking Obama was in office. Oh god. That's weird. Okay, anyway, let's see. Let me go with my thoughts the whole Prime Trilogy at first. So yeah. Funny thing, the original Metroid Prime was actually my first Metroid game. Because my brother got it for Christmas one year. And he ended up not playing it much. I remember I watched him once, I was like, oh, this game seems kind of cool. I think I played a demo of it in a game store. It's like, alright, I might try to get into this, but my brother was very possessive back in the day. He didn't want me playing his games a lot. But he didn't really play Metroid Prime, so I fucking took it on myself to play it. But I didn't really know what I was doing, so I played the strategy guide at the time, trying to figure out exactly what I was doing.
I know that feeling.
I followed it kind of to the letter. But then along the way, I did actually start to kind of learn how it worked. And well, I started to appreciate it. Funny thing, my brother didn't actually catch me playing that game until I beat it the second time. I was going there the second time he saw me, and I had to stop playing for a while. I think around the time he got out of middle school, he stopped caring. So I was actually able to play it again, and I enjoyed it. Then he got Prime 2, and he just let me play it. And that I did use the strategy guide for and struggled a bit, but Anyway, yeah, that's my history of starting off with the Metroid series, but... Metroid Prime 1. Once I played a game without strategy guide, the whole, like, freedom of, like, being able to explore the world as you wish, for the most part. The gunplay with swapping the beams was really fun for me. I really love the idea of, like, the strategic element of knowing what beam to use in what situation. Getting the items to be being able to go back and go to places you haven't been before. My first foray into that kind of game. It's probably why Metroid Prime 1 is still my favorite. It's my first one, and it really made me appreciate, like, how fun Metroid games can be. Especially when they're done right.
Yeah.
The boss fights were epic as hell. And, well, just, you got to feel Samus as a badass. There wasn't a lot of story, but it didn't need it. I love the setting as well, because I've always been a sucker for sci-fi things. So, it became one of my favorite games on the GameCube. And I played it on the GameCube, mind you. And it was still great. And then I got Prime 2, which, playing the GameCube version of that is a harder pill to swallow.
Guardian.
Oh, we haven't played the multiplayer yet.
Do we really care, dude?
It probably doesn't matter. If we wanted to do a throwaway video another time, we could. Maybe it's a celebration if Prime 4 has a release date. We could. I'll tell you, Prime 2 was definitely a weirder one to go through. I got stuck in it a few times, and I did not want to use a strategy guide. Turns out most of the time I got stuck was because I wasn't using my X-ray visor.
Sounds about right.
Fighting those fucking other portal things you need to use a secret missile for. I forget pretty much everything else, though. But, yep. I enjoyed the game for what it was, but I definitely remember being a lot more frustrated with it than the first one. And don't even get me started on hard mode with the fucking Boost Guardian. The amount of deaths I had on that were in, like, the double digits. It was bad. You've only heard the horror stories of how it is on GameCube.
Yep.
Oh! If you thought the one on the Hypermode on Prime Trilogy was bad, oh man, it was worse on the GameCube hard mode.
I've heard the horror stories.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what's...
Like, GameCube normal is still harder than Prime Trilogy Hypermode. I can just leave it at that. It's brutal.
The amount of pain that you go through for that is just...
But yep, I found myself coming back to Metroid Prime 1 a lot more than 2, and it shows how much I really love the game. Like, I would play that game like once every year or two, is how much I loved it. I even made my ex-girlfriend when I was in high school sit through and watch me play it. And then she wanted to play on the other end, and I was like, oh god, I gotta break up with you. But in all seriousness, I heard that, I was like, alright, fine. But then, Prime 3 happened, the one I was extremely hyped for. So I was paying a lot more attention to news on the internet about games and all that. I saw so many things in Prime 3, I was really hyped to go through it. Oh god, it scrolled so far! I think you're on Sketch Package. God, it scrolls fast. And the other things I can't unlock because you need friend codes and the green tokens for that.
Yep, so that's basically an impossibility.
Which sucks. Yeah, I never got to see all the artwork in freaking original Prime 3. That is one thing that sucks about Prime 3, since I'm at that point anyway. Metroid Prime 3! When they actually introduced motion controls, honestly, the way the game works, it definitely feels like it's for the better.
This series works incredibly well with motion controls.
Uh-huh.
Stupidly well.
The whole freedom of gunfire, like, it proved, like, how good motion controls are when it comes to first-person shooters. Like, yeah, you kind of got that feeling when you played with a mouse on a PC.
Shooters in general, because another game that also, from what I hear, is like one of the good versions of the said game is RE4. I heard RE4 on the Wii plays like a dream.
Uh-huh.
Because of the pointer. Because it's basically like mouse control.
Yep. And that was something that, well, not too many developers unfortunately really realized with the Wii. Yeah. Nintendo did, usually.
Certain games managed to do better, and some managed.
Galaxy, even to a point, did that.
Yeah.
That was kind of weird the way it handled. But yeah, actually using the whole Wii Remote as a gun was brilliant. The whole free aim thing you can now do without having to stay locked on at center point when we were shooting.
Yeah.
They made the boss a little more complex because of that. You had to think of locking on them, focusing on them, and then shooting around them. It was really awesome, and the gunplay felt even smoother than it ever did. Not to mention they made it even more action heavy, which, whoo boy, It definitely made for some intense action pieces.
It definitely gave the game identity, for better and for worse, depending on who you ask. Because some people will look at Prime 3 and say, this doesn't feel like Metroid, which I can understand.
I don't like the motion controls. I don't like when you have to move things. I'll admit that game is a little weird.
That part is kind of fun. Neat, but not fun.
Creature package, I think is where you're on.
Creature package. It's hilarious to make fun of, but if I can actually get
God damn it! I'm gonna look at the creatures! Ah, there's all those sketches. But yep, I had a lot of fun with Prime 3, and at the time I played it, I thought it was my favorite game of the Prime Trilogy, because it was just so fun. And going through in Hypermode was also a delight. The variety of missions you had was exciting. The bosses, for the most part, were all pretty epic, and you have a great conclusion to the trilogy.
Yeah.
Like a whole ending to all of Phazon and Dark Samus was great. But, well, once I got the whole trilogy package, I got to experience the first few games' motion controls again. I fell in love with the first game again. So I realized, yeah. Because by the time the Prime Trilogy came out, I finally got to play the 2D Metroid games as well. Or at least Super Metroid and... I don't think I got to play Fusion at the time, but Super Metroid I definitely did. And going to Super Metroid and then right back to Prime 1, I was like, oh my god. This is exactly what Super Metroid was, but in 3D. And I fell in love again with Prime 1.
Yeah, that's basically what a lot of people say. And it feels weird for me because you think I'd be in that same mindset because I started off with Zero Mission and Fusion, so I do know what... Actually, that might also be another reason why, maybe. Because
Fusion was pretty linear.
Fusion was pretty linear, and I guess I sort of didn't
Zero
mind
Mission
that
and Sequence Break was also kind of linear, in fairness.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's the big reason why. I got so used to linearity. I didn't think it was as big of a problem as some other people made it.
Yeah, the way the 2D Metroid games were designed, they have a linear format, so it makes sense where to go. But if you know the secrets inside the game, you can actually break off the path and try something different. Zero Mission was probably the best at taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
Because they actually you can tell they had endings planned for you for getting as few items as possible. They wanted you to experiment with how little you thought you needed.
Yeah, which is a respectable and admirable thing to say.
There's some things at its core I'm not as big a fan of as other Metroid games, but the world exploration Zero Mission does its absolute best.
Yep.
Honestly, I think Dread is probably second in that regard. Because they have sequence breaks you can do, but not a lot of them. Yeah. The whole teleport system means you can go through like the main game quickly if you really know what you're doing.
I know the big exploit with Kraid is the only one that I'm aware of. I think
there
was another one.
You have to take a weird path and go through heated terrain to get the frickin' Morph Ball Bomb early. You also gotta do what everybody refers to in the game as the Donkey Kong jump. Like you do the Donkey Kong Country games, you roll off and jump.
Huh.
You can do her slide, and as she goes off the cliff, you can actually jump for a little bit as she slides off. And you can tell they programmed that in mind. That's what I love. When there are exploits, and you can tell they kind of planned it.
It is kind of weird. Making exploits is the weirdest thing. Or making sort of alternate paths like that. Because you have to sit here and wonder, what sort of, how do you make it seem clever enough without... That's something that I will say this series does.
That's something that's really hard with Metroid games. Because there are so many Metroid games, you gotta design them well in that way. A lot of them end up being, usually being linear with you having to go backtrack. That's what the Shantae games are really good with. They're very linear. But it's still good the way it is. You have to backtrack, get a lot of things, but they make sensible world progression. They don't really think too much about, like, oh, you can try to skip ahead in the game. It's very hard to do that. Metroid's one of the only series that's managed to do that right. I also kind of want to say Hollow Knight's somewhat done that well, too.
It is kind of a weird thing, because you don't want for every single game to do that, because it'll eventually just make it seem like you're kind of making... It's like you didn't really give a damn about half of the game that you made, sort of thing, if that makes sense.
I will say another game is a step in between that idea is Ori and the Will of the Wisps, the sequel, which I don't think you've played yet.
I have that game, I just haven't played it yet.
Yeah, I'll just spoil this. Once you get to the second half of the game, they basically tell you, okay, to do this thing, you need to go to these 4 areas to get these 4 things so we can help take care of the evil or the forest or whatever. And basically you have your own choice of which one to go after in what order. Except for one. You can kind of make your way to it, but you can't actually do that one until you do the other three. But they basically make it a little open, so you have a little more freedom of choice. But you do have to do all of them to get to the end at the very least. And that's something that can be kind of hard to do in a Metroid game.
Yeah.
Because you want to have it to follow a certain flow and formula to make it feel right. Like the progression of power you get feels right.
It's one of those things of game design where it's like we can play as many games as we want and say that we know what it is, but there's a certain art to making specific games tick in the way that they do.
Yep.
And it's a very difficult thing to make sense out of. We can say, some of us can sometimes say we can make sense out of it, but when you behind that sort of thought process, you kind of have to sit here and wonder what works and what doesn't, and why is. I think the biggest thing that holds people back is the why. Why would you do this? Or why should we do this?
And I said one of the best examples of that is Zero Mission and Super Metroid to a point. Like, you think it's linear, but then you just shoot a missile in a hole somewhere. It's like, huh, there's another path to go down. And it's like, oh, well, you thought of coming down here, you could skip a big area. Or, hey, you have another item, you could go to take a shortcut out of this. Like, Nintendo crafted 2D Metroid games so well with the idea of how you can interconnect a lot of previous areas. And that's something a lot of other Metroid-style game designers can't really figure out.
Yeah, because I think a lot of that.
I haven't played a lot of the Castlevania Metroid-style games.
I think that's the big thing about a lot of that is that they probably see it more from the Metroidvania angle. And the thing about the Metroidvania angle is that when we look at it from a Metroid angle, we see just the power-ups and what they do. When we see it from the perspective of the Metroidvania angle, there's an RPG element that's added in where it's a numbers game and all that. And there's a lot of other mechanics around that beyond it. And as a result, it can sometimes be easy to snap into a million pieces. As fun as and satisfying as it is something that happens when you have that sort of RPG numbers game mechanic attached to it.
That's something some of the games suffer from.
Yeah.
Which, well, usually the good ones you'll hear about a lot. I will admit, though, the combat of the first Ori game is definitely lackluster. I'm glad the second game is so much more with it.
I'll probably look into that at some point.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that if you were even a slight fan of the first game, I definitely recommend the second one.
Yeah, I enjoyed the first game.
But yep, the Metroid Prime series is, I'm so happy. Like, in regards to like gaming trilogies, it is probably my favorite. Because it's mostly consistent quality-wise of any trilogy in gaming.
I'm trying to think of trilogies in gaming I can think of, but...
Like, I can tell when there's high quality in it, when there's some that clearly feel like they're weaker than the others, but they have their own fans. Like, there are people that have claimed each game of this trilogy as their favorite. And it's kind of hard for me to deny any way of that. Although Prime 2, I do have to debate with you a little bit on that, but even I have my strong points to that. The boss fights, I feel, are the best in Prime 2. Some of the powers of that are fucking awesome. And the ammunition system may be annoying, but if you understand how it works, it's overpowered as fuck.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Like, when it comes to that, I think I might say in terms of trilogies as well, because the only trilogies I can think of off the top of my head that I have played are this one and the Jack trilogy.
I haven't played a lot of the PlayStation trilogies, unfortunately. I played the whole Crash trilogy, which was... If you ignore the first game, it's good. Spyro trilogy, it's all good.
Yeah, Spyro trilogy is one of those things where it keeps getting better and better. If I want to be humorous and make fun of the fact that Mega Man Zero was originally supposed to be a trilogy because 04 was never really supposed to happen.
I was going to say 2 through 4? Wait, but the first game's still good. Not as good as the others.
Yeah, it's like, not as good as the others.
But
although I am glad, beyond that, I'm glad 04 did
the Zero trilogy is great. What about what about the PlayStation trilogy of the X games?
Two of them are good. Well, actually, depending on who you ask.
One of them is good.
One of them is excellent.
One of them is excellent, and the other two are very mixed.
Yeah.
One, very mixed.
Especially.
Some people say 6 is their favorite, which is scary. I like it more than 5, but I wouldn't say it's near my top favorite. No way.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah. There's that. I guess the Mario Brothers trilogy is a good one too, although 1 is very basic.
It's very difficult to say that.
2 depends on which one you look at, and then 3 is easily the best Nintendo game.
Yeah,
regular
and-
Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah. If we're talking just NES, then yeah, I guess we can play
Like, by a long shot, it's the best NES game. By a long shot.
I mean, when it comes to like, I know a lot of people talk about the nostalgia for the NES, but for me personally, it's
I
like
guess there's original Final Fantasy as well. I haven't played that one though. It's a basic RPG, but apparently it still works for what it is. Better than Mystic Quest.
at least it's an actual RPG that it challenges you.
Mm-hmm. I know people do have a soft spot for saying the first Final Fantasy is their favorite, which is weird to me.
I mean, I understand that because it was the first that was like the first major innovation in fantasy games and turn-based RPG as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Because before that, you had Dragon Quest, which only like did silhouettes and stuff,
Right.
and then you had Final Fantasy, which all of a sudden had your character starting doing actions and stuff, which is revolutionary at the time because no game before ever did that.
Oh, yeah. It was very forward-thinking, that game. And it came in the middle of the NES's life cycle, which is wild!
Yeah.
And Mario World threw that even more. But yeah, other gaming trilogies, let me think. I didn't play a lot of Super Nintendo trilogies or Genesis trilogies. I can't think of... Sonic Trilogy!
I'm about to say, like, I was thinking about, wait, there's an obvious one.
Well, the second and third game are good, or we can ignore the first game and just throw CD
No,
in
2,
there.
3, and Knuckles. There we go.
God damn it!
But 3 Knuckles is one game. I know what I said.
Yep.
3 Knuckles is so good, it's 2 games in 1.
You can play Knuckles in all of them.
Yeah.
The Knuckles Trilogy.
Exactly.
God.
Who cares about the Sonic Trilogy? Sonic Trilogy? Come on. Knuckles all the way. Let's go.
God damn it.
Oh, that just hit me on another one. Sonic Advance.
Oh, that's a good... I have yet...
Sonic Advance is a very weird series.
3 is one I need to sit down and play at some point. I might do that.
I like
for
Advance 1. Advance 2 sucks in terms
If
of
it weren't for the fucking ring collectible bullshit, I'd like it more than 1.
And 3, honestly, I will defend... And honestly, I might say 3 is my favorite of the bunch.
I have yet to play it. Maybe if I get to it at some point on my channel, I might
3
make
has
it
a lot
blind.
of things going against it for some people in a lot of regards, but I personally think it has a lot more going for it. I feel like it does something like the world exploration stuff that it tried to do in 2.
I just heard
but
some of the
doesn't-
collectible stuff is a pain in the ass. Maybe
What?
not as bad as in 2, but...
It can be kind of rough, I will say that.
Is there just a lot? Is it hard to get them, or is there just a lot to get?
There's 10 Chow to get in each world, I think is how it is.
That's the big thing you need to do? That's about it?
Yeah.
Okay, I like that better than Advance 2 already.
And the thing is, it's
But
like...
sometimes you gotta explore the whole level and find them all.
Yeah.
At least you don't have to get them all in one run, right?
Nope. Once you get one, you get it for good. That is the saving grace of this.
Fucking Advance 2. At the very least, Advance 2, you only need to do one playthrough to get the Supersonic stage. I want to say you have to do all 4 in the first Advance game to get the Supersonic stage, but I don't remember. But yeah, Sonic Advance Trilogy is good. We can't see the second of these packages. No!
I'll have to leave you in suspense.
Ruined forever! You have to I know there's a website you can like download the files onto a SD card and basically put it in the Wii and basically use that save data. They like have the green tokens
Yeah.
on there for you. They even have like varieties of the files you can download, so you want to have like all the green tokens, but none of the files have been played at all. You can have all the files there with all the tokens and everything 100% done. You have to be a mix of them, or you have to be like all scans, but or you have to be like all the games fully completed 100%, but no scans. It's like wow. They really went through a lot of effort to give people the chance to actually look at this if they wanted to.
I do love the heart and soul that some of these communities have when you get really hardcore members that go all out like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I can respect.
So, Metroid fans are some of the most passionate. AM2R is anything to go by.
Oh yeah,
A fan went out of his way to do basically another big Metroid 2 remake of the feeling of Metroid Fusion and Zero Mission.
I never beat it before. When I played of it, it was extraordinary.
I basically watched a video of all the boss fights, which I noticed a lot of it. There were some unique ones, and some of them were cool. I realized you could basically glitch some of them out with a power bomb, but still cool for what it was. And yeah, it was great. But yeah, Prime Trilogy is amongst my favorite trilogies, and all the trilogies around this time were great too. Halo Trilogy was a good one if you're an FPS fan.
Devil May Cry Trilogy if you want to count the PS2 games. If you discount 2.
Yeah. Oh god. Are there multiple playthroughs in 3?
Yes and no.
Do you have to beat one to unlock the other?
I think that's how it worked, yeah.
Okay.
'Cause I know the big thing about 3 is that
You have to
unlock
beat
Virgil.
Dante's campaign to unlock Virgil's, basically?
I think that's how it worked.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember for sure, but I think that's how it worked. I can look it up later, but...
I could say the Resident Evil trilogy, but...
It depends on who you ask, because that's a very interesting case study. Because because I hear some people like talk about how they don't like 3 or 2. Well,
I know people really like original 2. Original 3 I've heard is weird.
The original 3 I heard is weird, but honestly...
But Nemesis makes it great.
Nemesis, there's a lot of interesting things that they do in 3 that honestly make it a lot better than most people will give it credit for. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of those games that's way better on replays.
Okay.
That's what it is.
And then there's Code Veronica.
And Zero.
Oh yeah, Zero. Oh god. I keep forgetting about that game. Yeah. I think the first half of that is great. Then once you actually get to where Resident Evil 1 is, it's like, it's okay.
It goes way too slow because of the mechanics that they tried to add in. Which is what kind of buries that game.
Right.
Kind of a tragedy, but...
Then you got your PS2 trilogy. Sly Cooper, okay. Ratchet & Clank was a great trilogy. They improved every entry.
I would say Ratchet & Clank, but there's a problem. We also got deadlocked. So, no trilogy for that. God damn!
Built on the multiplayer element they had in 3, I bet.
Yep.
I figured.
It's much different in tone as well.
Well, Sonic was trying to be experimental. I get it.
Yeah, after what happened with, because what I didn't realize is that Insomniac actually went through a hell of a crunch when doing, Ratchet & Clank 3, which honestly, when I look at it, it kind of makes sense, but you never imagine that because...
It polished so well. I guess
so
it's more of the multiplayer element that was rushed in. That's probably why some of the missions you had to do were based on the multiplayer aspect.
Yeah, because there was also a big plan of trying to make a little bit more of the world more identifiable, but they couldn't really do that, so they had to compromise in certain areas. That was one of the areas that they did it in. The ship was there, but I guess they wanted to put ship battles in, but they couldn't really get it in time, so they just said, screw it, you can at least have the cosmetics.
They were the first 2 games with the third one. It is weird.
It feels weird talking about that game, because it's like, I don't advocate for the crunch, but for what it's worth, they did a hell of a job for 1 year. It kind of shows just... Because I know for the Sly Cooper trilogy, the funny thing about that is that I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years that they did for Sly Cooper 2. Then it was 2 years for the second game, and then 1 year for the third game. But everyone on Sucker Punch was kind of like embracing that because it's like, we made these games like in and out, so why don't we challenge ourselves a little bit?
Games were able to be made like a year apart like that back in the day.
Because the people knew the games inside and out, and they were still there making said game.
Yep. And if they do a bad job, you can tell, like from X6. They really took a lot of shit from X5 and just slapped it in and tried to update some things.
X6 was made behind Cage Infinite's back, and it fucking shows.
Yep. Yeah, you also got the Jack trilogy. I was going to say the Grand Theft Auto trilogy on PS2.
Technically, it is a trilogy.
Yeah, 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, yeah.
Depending on who you ask, most people usually say Vice City, though, but they're all relatively... fine games.
Yeah. And 360 had Gears of War trilogy, and PS3 had the Uncharted trilogy.
Yeah, the Uncharted trilogy, and then 4 came in and happened, but...
Oh, here's all the bonus features you can unlock the games. Diorama stuff, I don't know what that is. MP3 ship bumper stickers. Basically, some of the earlier Wii titles, you can basically have a bumper sticker to your ship in Prime 3, representing some of the games you have in your memory.
Yep.
A Mii bobblehead, basically. Your Mii that you have select the file as a bobblehead in your ship. If you have that. Screenshot tool. I imagine that's something you could have used to basically have something posted to your Wii message board. Fusion Suit you can unlock, thankfully. Yep. That's why I always have it on.
Yep.
The dioramas, I have no idea what those are. Fucking friend vouchers. The worst thing Prime 3 introduced. Send a friend voucher to someone on your friend. Oh, I have all these friend vouchers, but nobody to give them to.
Yeah.
God, it shows my old friends who had Wii's back in like the 2008. Jesus.
And Wi-Fi.
Shows how old my Wii is. Wii Connect 24 doesn't even work anymore.
But with that being said, that's everything that we're going to show up for the...
Long story short, this is one of our favorite gaming trilogies. If you haven't played this, there's something wrong with you.
If you're a fan of Metroid with any stretch of the imagination and want an opportunity to play these games, please do.
If you have a Wii, try to get the fucking trilogy if you can.
This is the best way to play these games if you have any chance.
If you have or know somebody that has a Wii U, hurry up and try to download that version before March, because that version's $20!
Yep.
You want a basic version to play it, get that!
It's criminal how much of a deal that is.
I bought it just out of principle. Just out of principle, I bought the Wii U version.
Yeah, I mean, I would do that for myself, but I already have a copy of the hard copy of it.
Until then, we can only hope that it actually comes to Switch.
Yeah.
We can only hope.
Because Nintendo with their game preservation is just abysmal.
Hopefully we'll see a little improvement with their next Switch console. Which, by the way, in case you didn't know, apparently they were planning a Switch Pro model, but supposedly they canned the idea because they'd rather work on a next console instead. I think they realized how big the power gap was between them and the other consoles.
I guess now they started to realize with how many more eyes they have on them.
So I'm hoping either by this year or latest next year we hear something about the Switch successor. And hopefully it's not a stupid name. Like, Switch again.
Switchback.
Switchback! Wait, did it downgrade Wii U 2? No! Wii U 2! Oh my god, that would be horrible.
Switch up.
Oh god. Oh god, I could see that being a thing too.
God damn it.
Switcheroo. But yep, this is a great gaming trilogy. It's a great thing we got to play through the whole thing.
And I'm glad I finally was able to put the Hypermode runs to rest.
Next, it's going for a low item, no lock on. Wrong.
You're funny. You're funny.
Oh god, I'll kill myself doing that one day.
Yeah.
But yep, I guess next Metroid game we'll do will probably end up being Zero Mission along the line. Or if we really want to jump to other M at some point.
I think it's about time for me to actually put some love back in some of the original games. By that I mean I'm starting off at Zero Mission because fuck you, I hate touching the NES games.
I got that on my Wii U as well, so.
Yeah. But if I come back again for the Metroid universe, you will most likely see me back with Zero Mission.
And any of the others we're playing from this point on, for the most part, are great.
Yep, I'd say the majority of Metroid, like I said, Metroid is a series that it's like a 90, maybe like high 80s, low 90s batting average ratio when it comes to games.
Yep.
There's almost none of them that you can say are really bad.
Prime Hunters and other M were in the 70s. Everything else was 80s or higher.
Yeah.
Or like, a lot of them typically hit like high 80s.
Yeah.
I think Prime 1 hit like low 90s. I think Prime 3 might have hit 90.
The point of that I'm basically trying to make is
high
that
quality.
The series is good.
Yep. It's often overlooked because not a lot of people think of a lot of hardcore games they think of Nintendo franchises. Well, this is one of the big ones of Nintendo, and it's debatably the best.
Yep. And if you haven't played it and are big into sci-fi stuff, but you have Nintendo, please try this series.
I was saying, like, it might even have a game as bad as Mario Sunshine. I also want to put other M in that category. That is Metroid's Mario Sunshine. Other M.
When you put it that way.
And their Metroid Prime Hunters is based on their new Super Mario Bros. 2.
Yeah.
Because it tried something they did before, but it became a lot more bland.
Exactly. And Federation Force is supposed to be a spin-off that could have taken off. It just came out at the worst time.
Yep. But thankfully we got this whole thing to air before the Wii U eShop went down. So again, if you have a Wii U, fucking download this whole trilogy if you haven't already.
Yep.
It's a masterclass trilogy I feel like any Nintendo fan should experience.
Yep.
Please give it a chance. Until then, guess we'll do something else.
Yep, next time I come back to the Metroid series, you'll see me again in Zero Mission. Am I going to do that right now? Probably not, because I want to take a little vibe from this trilogy.
So let's go to Zero Mission right now. Yep.
Brilliant idea.
Let's go for a low percent run. Make it really fun.
Oh, fun. Anyways, later, people.
Yep.